And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Rails of New England. Now this is a big box comparatively, and honestly when I first saw this I wasn't very impressed with it, not because of anything other than the fact that I thought, oh, it's yet another train game. What is that? And yet another train game. And there's so many train games out there. And then here's one in New England. Okay, well, whoopee-ta-doo. But I had reports from a few people that I trusted their opinions where they said, this is good. This isn't your typical train game. And it's not. If anything, I would compare this game closer to Power Grid, which is a game that I really enjoy. Well, it took a while because it is a fairly involved game. It takes a while to play. So it took a while before I was able to get it to the table. So let's take a look at the game and then we'll be back. So there's a lot going on in this game, and there's no way I'm going to be able to explain it to you. The rulebook isn't written very well, and so there's even a good chance that I'm making a mistake. Although I'll tell you, I perused those rules for a long time. The game is going to take place over 16 turns, and each turn can be fairly long, so it can be a long game. As you can see here, you're going to be playing on a map of New England, which is broken up into multiple cities, and between each of those cities, you'll see that there's a number that shows the cost of connecting those cities together. What you're going to be doing over the course of this game is you're going to be building depots in these cities. You're going to be putting little cubes down in the city to show that you have a depot built in that city of your color. And there's a certain amount of depots that can be built. Only 2 depots can be built in most cities, although in capital cities and in trade cities you can build more. Now, as the game is going to be progressing, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be building businesses. So let me put a couple of these businesses here. And each state is very different in this game. They have different starting businesses that you can pick from. And you can see here that a business has a certain cost. And I guess I should tell you at this point that the point of this game is to have the most money at the end. And money means value. And so if you build a business, for example, I build this twine business here in Middleton, Connecticut, that business at the end of the game will be worth 6. So if I build it for 6, I haven't technically lost that money. But these businesses are going to affect my income each turn. And they're going to affect your income differently. You can see there's 6 numbers on the card. And the game will be in 3 different modes: depression, normal, and prosperity. Depending on what mode depends how much money it earns you. If you're connected to one of the trade cities, then you'll use the second row. Otherwise, you use the first row. And so there's all kinds of businesses, and the game is basically split into 3 periods. And so there's a few businesses in the first period, AA period, but the different businesses will come in the third period, and even more businesses will show up in the last one. Each one is tied with a very specific town. You don't need to be in that town. You are actually owning the business. Now, to connect to a city, when it's your turn, you have different actions, and these actions can be building businesses and such, but you're going to connect by, you put one of your depots in the town that you're building, and then you put one of your businesses in the trade city, which is either Boston or Montreal or New York, which is way down in the corner over here. And you don't have to build all the way one depot in every city. You just have to pay the costs from one depot to another depot. As long as you have a depot in 2 different cities, you're fine. So for example, if I start here in Peterborough and I want to build a depot in Concord, that'd be easy. A depot costs $3 to build, and there's 8 between here, so I'd build 11. If I wanted to build a depot up here in Laconia, then I would have to pay 8, 4, 2, so that would be 12, 14 plus the 3, that'd be 17. You're allowed to build more than one depot in an action, but each extra depot will cost an additional 3. So I could build 2 depots, and that would cost 6 to build the second one, and I'd have to pay the costs. And so there's a whole bunch of math here as you try to figure out the most economical way to build depots. And you can build depots that are far away and get connected to cities you want to quicker, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. You don't actually have to connect any cities to get money from your businesses, but the amount of money that you get is often quite more. Each player has a state here, and this shows you the actions you can do. And there's also a income track at the top of it. And the game comes with 3 sets of markers so that you can track your income. You can use the one set to track it during a normal time, another set to track it during prosperity, and another set to track it. So you have 3 sets of markers here tracking 3 different incomes depending if it's prosperity, normal, or the depression part of the game. So you're constantly moving these markers around, and you look on here, and you can also keep track of your loans. You can take out loans, but then you got to pay interest every turn. And so what players are trying to do is they're trying to get money from their businesses, but they can also do other things. There's mail contracts. If you connect a certain amount of cities in a state, you can get a mail contract, which will get you money per turn. There are special delivery routes at the top of the board that you can claim if you connect specific cities. There are other things. And then as the game progresses, these events will come up, and these events might cause floods or fires or snow. Different things will happen, and some of the businesses, for example, this furniture business here, you can see is susceptible to fire and snow events. So you have to, when you build a business, you have to see is it susceptible to different events, and which events could possibly cause something bad to happen. Some events are required events. They're going to happen. Other events may or may not happen. It depends on a die roll. At the beginning of the turn, your start conditions will be normal, and as the game each turn goes, you start rolling dice, a 10-sided die, and it shows you what 2 turns from now the economic conditions are going to be. And then you'll draw from another deck of cards, which should have been differentiated on the back, but you have your normal and you have prosperity, and when you're in one, then you roll to see what the next one is. So when you're in normal, it could go all different ways. When you're in prosperity, there's a good chance it will stay in prosperity, but it still could go all the way down to depression. And then it tells you, will an event happen this turn, and you roll a die for that. So like I said, this is kind of a really brief overview. This is not enough for you to go play the game from, I doubt, but you're basically working on what should I do. For example, Maine can hook up some companies and get, so the player playing Maine, the state of Maine will start up in this area, and they have a hard time connecting to the trade cities, but they can set up some mail routes pretty easily. They can set up some nice businesses and get some special things going up here. While all the way down here in Connecticut is doing well, but there's some bridges on the board, and they can't build through these bridge routes until a specific event comes into play. But other than that, their cities are close together. And, Vermont is way up here, and they can easily connect to Montreal. And so everyone has a very different feel, and there's cities all over the board, and you're going to be constantly looking at that because you'll draw this card, and it will say Fitchburg, Massachusetts, and then you're kind of, okay, I see that Massachusetts is right here, but where is that city? And you'll find yourself spending a lot of time, or an event card will say the White Mountains, and then you're like, where are the White Mountains? If you don't know this area, you're going to find yourself looking at the board quite a bit. So that's kind of how to play the game. Let's go to my opinion. So let me start out by saying I think that this is actually a good game. Like I said, it has some similarities to Power Grid. The fact that all the players in the game have asymmetrical starting positions and how you're supposed to play is very intriguing to me. You have a wide range of options. You need to decide each turn what to do, and there's so many different options and things going on. The economic conditions is a very unique thing to the game, and I found that very fascinating. You have to prepare. You find out depression is coming. You need to dig down, get ready. Good times are coming. It's time to expand. The money aspect of the game, I'm someone who likes economic games, and this is much more of an economic game than it is a train game, and so I like that aspects. But, alright, Rio Grande has put out some really nice games in the past, and I really think they do some tremendous production, but they really dropped the ball on this one. This game feels like the designers designed a good game, gave it to the publisher said, great, and published it as is, and no one along the way stopped and said, wait a minute, what about this and this? There are multiple pieces in the rules that or they're not even in the rules. There's multiple pieces that are in the game, and I said, well, what's this piece? I look through the rules, and it doesn't tell you. And I'm like, ha. I had to go online, the Board Game Geek, and finally looking through lots and lots of threads. Oh, that's what these pieces are for. Oh, that's what these pieces are for. It's just not very intuitive on how to play the game. When you're playing the game, you get these cards, and it says, go to this city, or, this city. And you don't know where that city is. And maybe if you live in New England, you know. I don't live in New England, so I know where some of the major cities are, but there's no markings on the card where it is. And anyone who's not from the area at all, there's cities all over the map. It's a very busy map, so you're going to be constantly looking around, where is that city? And so from production value and the rules were kind of just not laid out very well. A new set's supposed to be coming out, so maybe that will fix things. But things like in the rules that said there were certain cards in the game, and we were looking for these cards. Where are these special delivery cards? I couldn't find them anywhere. Oh, they're on the board. But that's not a card. That's a spot on the board. And here I am looking in the rules, looking for these cards. What cards are they talking about? Maybe these cards will show up. And so there was a lot of stuff where we were constantly saying, what do we do here? What do we do here? So then aspects of the game that I wasn't real thrilled about. Well, one, it's fairly long. And two, if you fall behind, it's difficult to catch a leader, someone who's made some good positional moves at the beginning of the game. Although I think that it's possible. And then what do you do? I mean, there's some strategies that, when you play your first game, you'll be like, oh, I probably should have invested in this. I probably should have went for this. That being said, I do like the wide range of choices that you have. You can expand, take over your state, go for the mail, go for the special routes. There's a lot of different things that you can do. But I really can't recommend the game as is right now. I think that there's a certain group of people who like heavier Euro or heavier economic games are going to find a lot of fun with this one. But the packaging and some parts of it were fiddly. Like the 3 different markers for economics to track your money. That sounds good in theory. You're like, oh yeah, you know how tiresome it gets to move all 6 markers every turn? It just really started wearing on us. So we finally just threw aside and just tracked the current economic things. You can fall into debt. That can spiral out of control. Like I said, it's a strong economic game with some very good historical flavor. But as it is, I'm just not sure I want it.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.
Yeah.